the Green New Deal and the House Bill 77 specifically, I think is important because I want snow to come back to Virginia. I love snow, and I keep telling my husband that we need to move to a northern area where it's actually cold. I don't like the heat. And this winter so far has been extremely disappointing to me. I am I have never had a December where the temperatures were consistently in the 60s. The 60s, and today is supposed to be almost 70 degrees in January. And if we don't do something, we're going to have summer all year round. And I'm sorry, I did not move to South America. I don't care for the extreme heat. I don't care for bugs the size of dinner plates. And I don't care for having to fight insects all year long. Our environment is constantly being impacted, and it's like nobody cares. It seems that people are more interested in being able to wear swimsuits all year long than they are in how our environment is changing and how it's being impacted. So that's why it's important to me. What about you?
Well, it's important to me because, frankly, I like snow, but not not the whole winter. And I do like warm weather, I guess because I'm older. But I understand, and I do agree with you with the bugs, the insects, and we do need more cooler. I'm not going to say it's extreme cold weather, but we do need more cooler weather than, because when I grew up several years ago, we didn't have all the bugs that we're having now, all the diseases, because the atmosphere, the climate, it keeps changing, and that's why we have a lot of people with upper respiratory infections like me, and because the climate,
Exactly.
your body can't keep switching back, adjusting.
I agree, 100%. Um, One of the things that I learned on the internet is that colds like cold weather, and they pass back and forth better with cold weather, and with March being the biggest season for colds and flu. If you think about the temperatures in March, they're like early spring, and now we're having early spring from October to May, and with weather constantly being just short of mild, we've got longer flu seasons. And I mean, granted, that might be a plug for pharmaceutical companies to make more vaccines. I don't think it's a good thing for people overall. I mean, because people are staying sick, and
No, we go really from winter into summer, and summer back into winter.
mm-hmm.
And if you noticed, that trees were beautiful in the fall, but it's not the tree, even the leaves and things. It's not like it used to be,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't stay on the trees that long. Because I know the maple trees in their yard, both of them, it just started falling and went.
Exactly. Now, one of my favorite parts of House Bill 77 is um, the moratorium on pipelines. Because the pipeline that exploded here at Appomattox was almost in my backyard. I was sitting in my house, and it sounded like a helicopter was hovering over top of it. And my husband and I were like, what is going on? Is there a helicopter out there? And we went outside to look for a helicopter, and there's a pillar of fire that you can see above the trees in our backyard. And we didn't know what was going on. We didn't know what had exploded. We didn't know how far the fire went. We didn't know if our house was going to be burnt up. All we did was we grabbed a cat and ran.
Yeah, I can understand that because my friend, my husband was our friend, because him and worked forever, but he had passed. But his wife and daughter and child, they were staying in their home, and their home was on fire, and they ran down to there was a creek in the back of the house, and their Linda's grandson took them down to that creek, and that's how they survived that.
Wow. We drove down
Right
the
there
road.
on 26, yeah.
Yeah, we drove down the road afterwards, and
that it was devastating because, you know, at the time people were saying they thought they were still in the house, and didn't realize that they had gotten out. You know.
exactly. I was excited to see that that was part of the bill, that they would put a moratorium on that, especially since they've been trying to put the pipelines up through Nelson County. And I'm sorry, after having one explode in my backyard, the last thing I want is have any more put in.
Somebody else, yeah.
Exactly. Especially since evidently that one had not been properly maintained, and it hadn't been checked on. Nobody looked at it, so it had cracks in it. And when it exploded, I mean, it shook our foundation. So it was completely unexpected. We didn't even know that there was a pipeline that ran near our backyard. We had no idea. So
see, that's one of the things that I think that everybody should be more educated on, knowing what's in your area. And we have a lot of lack of communication.
Yeah. And with this being a rural area, these are things that affect and impact farmers and farmland, and not just people that are in cities and towns, where obviously the environmental impact is a lot higher because you've got a larger cluster of people and a smaller landmass. You end up with a lot of people who are driving cars, and you know, their factories and buildings and things like that are going to impact the environment. So you expect climate change to be a big issue in major metropolitan areas, but when it comes to rural areas, people's first thought is usually, well, we've got trees, so we've got oxygen, we're good. But when you're going through those trees and you're putting pipelines underneath it, and you know, you're searching for natural gas resources and things like that, it really has an impact on you. I know we didn't have our beekeepers here, but the impact on them has been really big, and they've been dealing with their bees being affected. A lot of these beehives are suffering because the temperatures aren't dropping, and the bees they're not hibernating, they're not resting, and a lot of them have diseases and fungus that's affecting the beehives, and they're losing them.
Yes, because that's the reason why I was so concerned about it, because I know they raise bees, and I get honey from them, and it's good honey, raw honey, and now they're cutting right next to them on their property line, right next to them, and they just demolishing everything. I mean, everything. So
those are the biggest impacts that I can see now.
yeah, because that's not their only livelihood, but some of the beekeepers, that's their livelihood.
Exactly.
And that's affecting them big time.
Exactly. I would like to see a cost assessment for the changes of this bill, because I understand that climate change is not something that's going to come cheaply, and being able to make those steps, the point was made that it's easier if you take small steps than big giant leaps. And while I understand that small steps are easier to garner the approval of general public, we're in a situation where our environment is changing rapidly. And in just the last 5 years, we've seen our longest span of warm days in the winter and our hottest summers. And they're just getting hotter. And it seems like nobody is immediately interested in making the changes that are necessary to stop it. Now, with the fires going in Australia, we're going to have a horrible hurricane season coming up. One of the things that I learned in high school was that dust that comes off of the southern tip of Africa is where a lot of the hurricanes start. And since we've got Australia out here immediately to the east of the southern African tip, it's going to be coming through, and the atmosphere is going to be a mess. So whatever we can do to mitigate the damages that are happening now is going to be better for us, even if it's a radical change. So I'm happy that the bill is there and that we're immediately trying to do things with our environmental protections and climate changes. It's necessary.
Well, not only, even though you spoke about it being in Australia, but the fires that's in California. Mm-hmm. And see, that's closer to home,
Exactly.
So that's putting that at risk.
Yeah, exactly. And with our current climate change situation, we're seeing fewer rainy days. So it's the impact is something that we're all feeling right now, but no one is necessarily attributing it to climate change. It's just, we're having a nice day. Great, let's enjoy the sunshine.
Well, we see what we see present and not thinking ahead,
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So that's natural, but but somewhere along the line, somebody has to be conscious of what is what.
Exactly. So those are the things that I think that we should really focus on, is how to get this information, how to get the information out to the general public, in layman's terms.
In layman terms, that's what I was going to say. You sit and you read these articles and they give you all this stuff and you're reading where he is, whatsoever be. Come on, break it down where I can understand. Mm-hmm. And then when I try to explain it to someone, I can do that.
Exactly.
But just to take that paper and read it, I can't, I can't explain it to you when I don't understand it.
Exactly.
So we need more communication. In layman terms, more communication with our people in the community,
mm-hmm.
And make them aware.
In these rural
Yeah,
communities.
make people aware about it.
Exactly. I wish there was an expert on all of these things, not just what the bills are that are going into our state legislature, but what the real impact is. What is the when we say there's an environmental impact, what does that mean in terms of me going to work every day? And what does that mean in terms of train? What does that mean in terms of how my life has to be adjusted for this? Those are the things that really, really would have an impact in communities like this one. And you'd say there's a bill, but people look at it and they say, so it's a Democratic bill. We have a Democratic government in the state now, so we don't care. And that, if they knew, this means that instead of you having to worry about your job today, you're not going to have to worry about your job anymore. Or because one of the provisions is retirement protections. So if people knew, oh hey, there's possibility for me to make sure that I'm not gonna have to worry about retirement or how much money is in my retirement. Those are the real things that people want to hear. So I wish there was more focus on the actual impact.
Rather than the possibilities.
Well, not just the possibilities, but the bill language. So, because everybody looked at me crazy when I said HB 77. What's that? What was that supposed to mean? And to say, if I could say, oh, this is the no pipeline in your backyard bill.
Right.
That has more impact and more meaning than HB 77. So I think if we could put things in real terms.
And this not only affects everyone.
Exactly.
Not just a party here, a party there, but it's everybody.
Exactly.
And that's what we really need.
Yeah.
Something where you can give the people in the community, because like you say, in your community you got everybody. Mm-hmm. And you need them to understand, hey, just because I am what I say I am, that doesn't mean that I'm not trying to help everybody.
Exactly.
You can't come up, with that.
Exactly.
And like you said earlier, you put everything in perspective. We have a guideline that we have to be governed by, and that's put on another perspective. But when you come to deal with everybody, you know what you're doing.
Exactly.
And I appreciate that in you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so if we could find a way to make it so that people to make it easy to digest.
Right.
I think that would be. I mean, I hate to say spoon feeding people, but
that's what you have to do.
Exactly.
Exactly, because like I said, with our Max Kitchen, our food pantry kitchen, we have information that we have, for the free clinic. And this is for everybody,
Mm-hmm.
where they can come in and pick up different things that pertains to them. Yes. And you're getting the word out to them.
Exactly.
So, in that way, you can just let them know, by the way, do you know anything about such and such about, so.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
You let them know what's out there. If you have to bring it down, like you say, people, because when you come down to it, say, okay, you have bees, you have beehives. Now this is gonna help you. Read this,
Exactly.
and see. And if you can't understand them, come back and send you to Casey, and she can explain it to you. Don't ask me. But
yeah,
because that's really serious.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing, with a lot of people here in this area.
Exactly.
They do have beehives.
Yeah, so that's one of the big things about explaining climate change. I mean,
right. But see, a lot of people, and until I really realize it and get to thinking, it doesn't. How would that affect anything?
Mm-hmm.
Well, your garden, your crops.
Exactly, and I don't think a lot of people are aware that if you have solar panels, at least right now, you can have the electric company pay you to have your electricity, and you can get refunds on your electricity. And my brother has solar panels on his house. He lives in South Carolina, and his bill is rarely anything over, I think, $150, and that's for that's winter running the heat in a 2,000 plus square foot house. You don't hear of that. My brother-in-law uses solar panels on his farm to help run the electricity there, and if it weren't so expensive, because we missed out on the benefit. I believe there was a grant or something that would help pay for solar panels, and I'm not sure if it's still available, but we would probably have them too, because the cost of energy is astronomical, and I love a regular wood fireplace, and and a lot of people have switched over to electric fireplaces. And I'm like, that's great and well and good, but what do you do when the power is out?
Well, see, I guess that's what with the gas. See,
And then you go back to
that's
the generator.
advantage.
And you
Yeah,
have
that's
gas,
advantage
and it
of
defeats the
having
purpose.
gas. Yes.
So to know that we could potentially have a situation where there is a push towards clean energy. It's clean air. And I'm a big fan because I suffer from asthma. So clean air is something that is a really huge deal for me. The number of people that suffer from respiratory
Yeah, because
problems.
like I said, they can't use kerosene, they say, because I know it stops me up.
Mm-hmm.
So
Exactly. So it's pushing towards making these changes and making them accessible and understandable to people that are very ingrained to their current
surroundings.
yeah, the current environment. It's hard to convince people to make changes, and I know how hard it is to convince people to make changes, because in high school I worked with my mom for teaching recycling, and then at the time it was the 3 R's: recycle, reuse, and reduce. And when people heard that you should reduce the packaging, buy things that have less packaging, they flipped out. And it was, why would I do that? And it's something that's simple, it's small, and it's easy, but something as simple as sorting your trash.
Right. But people don't really understand, which I had to learn too. It's better for the environment to use paper products. Mm-hmm. And they talk about don't kill the trees. Yeah, but when you using plastic, that's really clogging up stuff.
Exactly.
So, so I say, when you don't think, you just stop and think about it. Okay. So it's better for me to use the paper because it's not clogging up stuff.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And trying to get people to understand that Green New Deal is not about cow farts.
A lot of people think that.
Yes, they do. They heard one thing about cow farts, and that's the part that everybody got stuck on. And it's convincing people that it's not about cow farts. And cow farts have absolutely nothing to do with this. And just knowledge. Basic facts and knowledge, and in a language that meets the people where they are,
and that they can understand what's mm-hmm. going on.
Exactly. I think that is where we are with it, pushing these new mandates and bills and legislation through, because once people understand what the real impact is, then that's when they start to say, oh, I didn't know that that's what that meant. And they start to look at things a little more impartially.
That's good thoughts.
I would like to see more green parks. I mean, we have parks within cities, but most of them are geared towards community activity. So a lot of the green spaces are being used up for pools and playground equipment and pavilions and concert locations, mm-hmm. and things like that. If we could have more natural parks where there are hiking trails and walking trails and water features, like lakes and ponds and waterfalls and things like that, creeks and just nice soft green spaces. I like the park. We have two parks here in town. We have the Cortland Park, and we have the park with the kids stuff in it. But it's not really a green space. park. And granted, we do live in a rural area. There are lots of rural spaces here, but none of them, I mean, unless you're at somebody's house or you have permission to be on somebody's land, there's not a real place to gather except for a holiday lake. So if you want to say, oh, hey guys, let's go hang out at the park, let's take a walk through the park, you're going to walk through the park, and most of them you can walk from one end to the other in less than 10 minutes. There are things to do, but most people here travel to go do it. I shouldn't have to drive to Roanoke to go hiking. I shouldn't have to drive out to the Shenandoah Valley in order to find something. I mean, a lot of people go up on the peaks. They go out to Roanoke. They go out to Shenandoah. But I live in a green space.
You should be able to do something in a green space.
Exactly. I should be able to find it here too. So it's seeing an investment there and protecting these areas and making them a public space. I mean, we've got the battlefield. The battlefield isn't exactly my idea of a nice hike, but if that's what I've got, then that's what we're stuck with. But
I guess you just have to talk to the right people.
Yes. And I would love to see our community become less of a food desert.
Well,
we have...
You got too many fast food. And really, you have to go to Lynchburg or Gretna or somewhere to have a good sit-down meal.
Well, look at it this way. We live in historic Appomattox. It's a historic place. I should be able to find a place where I can go to a restaurant where they prepare a meal that is made the way it was up to and during the Civil War. I should be able to go find a candle maker who makes candles the way they made them 200-300 years ago. And that's not available here. And
Nope.
Those are things that, if done, I mean, it would eliminate the need for big businesses and big corporations here, but it would also provide an opportunity for people to engage in the community and not in a huge footprint type way. And it'd be a way to use up natural resources without using up natural resources.
It does also give people jobs.
Yeah.
Stable jobs, not just these little 3 and 4 hour jobs at the fast food. Employ 50 people and you might have somebody might accidentally, unless you're full time, get 20 hours, 18, 16 hours or whatever.
And things would be sourced locally and used locally. I think that in terms of protecting the environment and looking at our impact on the world, if we could use what we have and keep what we have here, or it's a benefit for everybody.
It's true.
And then we can have that honey shop.